In October 2020, Nigerian youths embarked on an End SARS protest to demand the disbandment of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad SARS unit, as well as other reforms in the Nigerian police force. The protest, which began as a peaceful gathering of thousands of young people, quickly devolved into chaos after being hijacked by hoodlums. The hijacked protest subsequently led to mob attacks on security personnel, killings, and vandalization of public and private properties. Set up in 1992 to mainly combat the rise of armed robbery in Nigeria, the SARS unit of the Nigerian police has been reportedly notorious for kidnapping, random arrests, extortion, torture of suspects, gruesome extrajudicial killings, and running detention facilities which some survivors have called an abattoir. The unit was investigated several times in response to protests, but without results. Reforms were then promised in 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019. However, the unit was eventually disbanded on October 11, 2020, after worldwide protests moved the government to act. The End SARS movement started in 2017, where Nigerian youths protested against the defunct police unit. However, the movement was revived in October 2020 after a viral video emerged of police officers thought to be members of the SARS unit allegedly killing an unarmed young man in Delta State. He was later said to have survived the assault. This prompted Nigerian youth to troop to the social media, especially Twitter, calling on the federal government to put a stop to the menace. Unfortunately, on October 20, 2020, the Nigerian security forces, according to reports, killed at least 12 peaceful protesters at the Lekki toll gate, a temporary end to the protests. In this video, we bring to you the timeline of the End SARS protest in Nigeria as it happened in October 2020. The End SARS protest started with a viral video broadcast on Twitter on Saturday, October 3, 2020, where men of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad SARS allegedly brutalized a young man in Delta State, snatched his car, and sped off with it. Anyone watching the video to see what had happened may hear the individual who recorded it yelling frantically. Subsequently, the hashtag #EndSARS started to garner momentum as more young people demanded an end to the notorious police unit that has brutalized many young Nigerians for years. The next day, on Sunday, October 4, 2020, the Inspector General of Police Mohammed Adamu announced with immediate effect the ban of SARS members and other tactical squads from carrying out routine patrols, stop and search duties, checkpoints, mounting of roadblocks, traffic checks, and so on. However, in the House of Representatives, Honorable Akin Alabi of the Onuara Egbeda Federal Constituency of Oyo State filed a motion to dissolve SARS. Nothing noteworthy occurred on Monday and Tuesday, but on Wednesday, October 7, 2020, youth in Lagos embarked on a 3-day protest to demand the disbandment of the Nigerian Police Forces Special Anti-Robbery Squad SARS units as part of a push for reforms in the police system to end the agency's extrajudicial activities. This was the beginning of a 14-day protest that turned violent and was taken over by thugs. On Thursday, October 8, 2020, IGP Adamu warned against attacks on law enforcement officers by the End SARS protesters following the reported murder of one policeman, injury to another, and alleged stealing of arms and ammunition by the protesters, even as Nigerian musicians and artists joined the protest, showing their solidarity for the cause to end SARS. President Buhari on Friday, October 9, 2020, through his Twitter handle, revealed that he had ordered the Inspector General of Police to address Nigerians while appealing for calm and patience, just as former Vice President Atiku Abubakar condemned any use of force on end-SARS protesters across the nation, urging the federal government to listen to the youth and investigate the use of force on protesters. In Lagos, Gbenga Omotosho, the State Commissioner for Information and Strategy, said the administration has noted the protest against the police brutality and it agreed that such acts of brutality must be stopped. On Saturday, October 10, 2020, a certain Jimoh Isiaka was allegedly killed by the Nigerian police in Ogbomosho, Oyo State, over the end-SARS protest against police brutality. Although the police denied shooting the poor man, Isiaka's killing angered more protesters, leading to a massive coalition to move the protest from social media to the streets. The first major gathering of protesters along the Lekki Expressway took place on Sunday, October 11, 2020, disrupting the traffic along the 49.5-kilometer road. Iconic images of the protest then spread across social media, spurring more young Nigerians to join the protest to show their support. Meanwhile, the Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Adamu, disclosed that the operations of the Federal Special Anti-Robbery Squad (FSARS) had been dissolved across all 36 states and the Federal Capital with immediate effect. Protesters on Monday, October 12, 2020, gathered at the Lekki VI toll gate, making it the epicenter of the end-SARS protest as President Buhari addressed the protest in his first televised speech. Meanwhile, the governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, announced the ban of all forms of protest in the state in a reaction to the proposed end-SARS protest in Port Harcourt for the next day. The day ended with reported police shootings around Surulere, Lagos, with one protester allegedly killed by the police. Videos on social media also revealed a police officer was shot from an alleged friendly fire. On Tuesday, October 13, 2020, Port Harcourt residents defied Governor Wike and marched to the government house while chanting the solidarity support as former President Goodluck Jonathan opined that Nigerians did not deserve to lose their lives while protesting peacefully for the advancement of their country. IGP Adamu announced the setup of a new police outfit known as Special Weapons and Tactics Team (SWAT) to take over from the dissolved Special Anti-Robbery Squad (SARS).
I dey here for the toll gate where Nigerian youths don't block, say no matter wetin dey happen, they no go open at all, nobody dey pass. As the matter take be so, federal government don come outside and come talk say the 5 things wey dem dey ask for, say they go do am. They even still don comot the SARS now, come bring SWAT. But as the matter take be now, they don say lie, say they no want SARS, they no want SWAT. But me no dey sure at all. But make I gats talk to 1 or 2 man say as the matter take be, no go anywhere. Federal government don gree say they go do the 5 things wey Nigerian youth and everybody protesters dey ask for. Wetin be the reason why we still follow come outside?
Which one? What did they say they do? The naming ceremony where they do, where they change from SARS to SWAT. The things I had to call. No such name. They say with the America. May they repent, for the kingdom of God is at hand.
The police chief also ordered all personnel of the dissolved units to report to the force headquarters in Abuja for debriefing, psychological, and medical examination. Meanwhile, the presidential panel on police reforms acceded to the 5 demands made by the end-SARS protesters across the country, just as Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos set up a 200 million naira fund for Lagosians who had been victims of police brutality. Feminist Coalition, one of the leading NGOs during the end-SARS protest in Nigeria, announced on Wednesday, October 14, 2020, that it had raised 38 million naira in crowdfunding for the protests. The federal government barred any police officer of any unit from looking into people's phones or profiling them, just as Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey joined in supporting the End SARS protests that has overtaken the country. The Nigerian Governors Forum (NGF) through its chairman, Governor Kayode Fayemi of Ekiti, demanded that all the police officers who participated in actions that led to injury or death of Nigerians must be brought to justice. Fayemi disclosed this in a meeting with the Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Adamu, on Thursday, October 15, 2020. Meanwhile, in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory Administration (FCTA) announced the ban on all street demonstrations after a wave of End SARS protests in the city. The Police Service Commission on Friday, October 16, 2020, reportedly dismissed from active service 37 former members of the dissolved SARS units, just as Vice President Yemi Osinbajo announced the setup of judicial panels of inquiry across the 36 states and the FCT. In the United Kingdom, the Minister for Africa, James Doddridge, said the UK was monitoring the End SARS protests in Nigeria and called for a peaceful police reform process. As of Saturday, October 17, 2020, protests had spread nationwide, with many other cities joining in to demand an end to SARS. Interestingly, the Nigerian Army announced a nationwide exercise Crocodile Smile from October 20 to December 31, 2020. The Army said it would be a cyber warfare exercise designed to identify, track, and counter negative propaganda on social media. However, the military claimed that the exercise was not targeted at protesters. On Sunday, October 18, 2020, the End SARS movement launched a helpline center and an online radio platform named Sorosoke to aid the coordination of the protesters nationwide through effective and timely communication. In Abuja, Senate President Ahmed Lawan called for an end to the End SARS protests after a closed-door meeting with President Buhari and Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila at the State House.
And therefore, I'm taking this opportunity to appeal to our youth who are protesting that the protests have already yielded the desired results. First of all, they say end SARS. That was the beginning. SARS was ended not by the IGP. SARS was ended by the president himself. The president, President Muhammad Buhari, made a statement, a presidential statement, and that would be the first time that any president will say end SARS. And SARS has ended. The other issues followed. The other issues.
Meanwhile, Bola Tinubu, the former governor of Lagos State, spoke out in response to media accusations that he was one of the people funding End SARS protests across the country. Tinubu asked Nigerians to ignore the news while refuting the charge and exonerating himself. Down south in Edo, the government, on Monday, October 19, 2020, announced the imposition of a 24-hour curfew across the state with effect from 4 p.m. in the evening. This was due to incidents of vandalism and attacks reportedly carried out by hoodlums who hijacked the End SARS protests. In Abuja, soldiers were deployed to the streets and stationed in strategic places to curb the End SARS protest that had, in some cases, gone out of hand as suspected hoodlums reportedly attacked protesters and pro-SARS groups. Meanwhile, protesters continued their protest at the Lekki Toll Plaza in Lagos, with more youth pouring into the streets. Reports indicated that the Lagos State had lost at least 234 million naira to the closure of toll gates since the commencement of the End SARS protests, although the state continued to generate money from adverts at the toll plazas. At 11:49 a.m. on Tuesday, October 20, 2020, the Lagos State government announced the imposition of a 24-hour curfew in all parts of the state, with effect from 4 p.m. This was due to the hijacked End SARS protests in the states, where hoodlums attacked citizens and destroyed properties. Subsequently, IGP Adamu ordered the immediate nationwide deployment of anti-riot police units, police mobile force, over attacks on police facilities by hoodlums during the End SARS protests. Delta, an American airline, turned back a passenger flight from the United States to Nigeria following repeated reports of violence. the plane was forced to return to the United States after a stopover in Dakar, Senegal. Following that, the airline cancelled all additional flights into Nigeria. Due to the hijacked End SARS protests, the United States Embassy and Consulates in Nigeria announced the shutting down of its consulates in Lagos for 2 days with effect from Tuesday, October 20, 2020. At about 6:45 p.m., multiple social media accounts revealed that peaceful protesters were allegedly being shot at by some operatives of the Nigerian Army at the Lekki toll gate holdout. The Lagos state government had issued a directive to extend the enforcement of its 24-hour curfew from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. on that day so that residents stuck in traffic could get to their destinations. At about 10 p.m., the Lagos state government ordered an investigation into the Lekki toll plaza shooting that was allegedly done by men of the Nigerian Army on Tuesday evening, just as former US presidential candidate Hillary Clinton called on President Muhammadu Buhari's administration and the Nigerian Army to stop the killing of young protesters in the country. A number of other world leaders would start tweeting about the purported massacre at the Lekki toll plaza. The next day, Wednesday, October 21, 2020, IGP Mohammed Adamu ordered the withdrawal of all police officers attached to VIPs across the country, with the exemption of those in government houses, the President of the Senate, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives. The Lagos state government suspended all government activities and declared a lockdown for 72 hours in view of the growing violence in the state. The governor had earlier paid a visit to the injured protesters at the hospitals where they were being treated and had also announced on air that no one had died in the infamous Lekki toll plaza shooting the night before. However, the governor confirmed 2 people had died as a result of the Lekki shooting as the United Kingdom High Commission in Nigeria announced the shutdown of its visa application centers in Nigeria for the next 48 hours with immediate effect due to the ongoing End SARS protests in the country. Television Continental TVC station in Ekosiketu area of Lagos State was burnt down by hoodlums who attacked the building. The headquarters of the Nigerian Port Authority in Marina, Lagos was also set on fire by purported hoodlums. In an interview session with Arise TV, the governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, responded to the question on who ordered the removal of the cameras at the toll gate and then switched off the lights. The governor said nobody ordered the action as the managing director of Lekki Concession Company, LCC, did not report to him. President Buhari would, later in the evening, address the country in a nationwide broadcast where he said it was pained that innocent lives were lost without a mention of the Lekki toll gate shooting. On Friday, October 23, 2020, the Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu said his administration was working towards stabilizing the state and rebuilding through verification of victims while calling on youth leaders to provide representatives for a judicial panel. Feminist Coalition, one of the leading supporters of the End SARS campaign, informed all financial supporters of the campaign to stop sending funds to the group, while also revealing plans for the remaining donated funds. Consequently, Coca-Cola Nigeria announced a donation of 20 million naira to cover the medical costs of hospitalized victims of the End SARS protests. With the announcement of curfews all over Nigeria, the End SARS protest actively came to a stop on Saturday, October 24, 2020. However, Nigerians in the diaspora continued with protests in Zurich, Paris, Auckland, Berlin, Toronto, Brussels, and other cities around the globe.
End police brutality, end SARS, end SWAT, end every form of inhuman treatment, be it from the police. Come, una no say SARS dey immigration. Immigration go beat you now. Una no say SARS dey custom go beat you now. So end everything. I will not say.
Until October 2020, Nigerians have been content with whatever the system offers. The country's leaders took its citizenry for granted, However, a generation that has learned to do things differently spoke of their demands for justice, a better society, and insisted with grim determination a reform in the security architecture of the country. These youths decided to stop playing the ostrich and took the bull by its horns. At the top of their voices, they only wanted one thing: end SARS.